Why did you choose hard tech to kind of be the main focus? Is it just partly like that's what's happening in El Segundo?
Yeah, I mean, our focus is like two things. One, the cultural part you mentioned of like where if people have this like this value base, it's whether it's like kind of comes from like a pro-Western perspective, like pro-Christian perspective, whatever it is. They usually want to be around people who also share that and don't want to spend time with people who are like just clearly, like you mentioned, kind of out there for their own personal reasons. So like we want to find people who want to be a part of this kind of community. Also, I know which is very unique in that like it is the mainstream. It is mainstream that you like go to church or you like love your country or you're pro Western civilization, stuff like that. That's one part, and then second, the actual practical part of the hardware, space defense stuff, and we do some software when it's like when it makes sense. Sometimes like the first part, like Wishon was very strong to him, and he wanted that. Second part is usually like hardware space defense. That's generally what we work with. So like if you have like the values focus and the cultural want of like to be in this ecosystem, plus you are building in areas that practically you should be building in El Segundo, because of the talent, the customers, the investors, the government interface that you're going to have a lot of people there. That's kind of where we come in. And then, what was your question again? I forgot.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why you chose hard tech as
Hard
kind
tech.
of
Yeah. So hard tech, like, again, I think there hasn't really been a ton of innovation in hardware, like I mentioned, in a long time. I think a lot of the areas of hard tech that need innovation are areas that are good for the country, are good for like communities, for like stuff that I care about. And I wanted to basically invest in stuff that I cared about, and the hardware was stuff I cared about and more interesting to me. So like our first cohort was a lot of hardware, like manufacturing stuff, aerospace, defense, mining, stuff that I think objectively is very important, critical industries for the country.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was kind of like the thought process there. And also like just there's like a very clear need for investors at the early stages of these types of companies.
Yeah. Why'd you see a need to invest in people who believe similar to you on like on a spiritual sense, not just like a we should make money capitalist sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think what I believe is correct. I think people in the U.S. or in America believe this is correct for a very long time. Like we are a Christian country. I think it's true. I think the values that come from a Christian country are things that we should try to get people to get behind, and we should fund people who are driven by those types of values that are objectively good and have worked really well for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And I think I'd prefer to fund somebody who is one driven by values that are going to be good for the country, and them as a leader will be good for the country, and two, the companies they're building are trying to advance these values in some form.
Yeah.
So I guess there's kind of two parts there.
Have the companies that have been like before, let's say, 2016, were they like they weren't bad for the country?
What do you mean before 2016?
I'm just saying before, like, because a lot of these companies in El Segundo have a shared mission of like we need to kind of we need to make America great again, right?
Yeah. Sure.
But it wasn't the case that before the El Segundo crowd started founding their companies.
Yeah.
Companies were new startups were trying to tear down America.
No. And first of all, I wouldn't say like everybody's all like Trump MAGA. There's plenty of people who aren't that way.
Yeah.
And like we're not in any way like so you have to be this way. That's not like in fact like that's not really something we care that much about. But like I think I mean there's plenty of companies being built before that were doing stuff in important areas. I think it's just become a lot more popular, I think. And I think there's also like a lot more interest from investors and from like talent to work at these companies just because like SpaceX and Andrew have like become one, like cool, have made a lot of money, and that like is encouraging people to invest and to work at these companies.
Yeah. The cool factor is interesting because it has been a bit of a mood shift. I was talking to Michael Foster yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read his book. It's Good to Be a Man.
Yeah.
But I was asking him like, so when you wrote that back in 2021, very different world than it is right now. How much of the shift in focus is kind of being driven by the companies founded, and how much is kind of driven by the broader cultural, like Trump winning the elections part of it, but also
it's a fair question.
Encouragement.
Yeah, I think I think. I mean, I guess in startups at least, like I think the two companies I mentioned earlier, SpaceX and Anduril, doing so well, made people a lot more excited about building in these areas, and like that changed the culture to some extent. Mostly because like defense in particular was very kind of taboo. There's a whole thing. I think it's called Project Maven
A lot
at
of red tape.
Google. Yeah, like most people wouldn't want to work with like defense companies or most like Silicon Valley startups wouldn't. And then Anduril did that, and then it worked. And now people are like, oh, it's actually cool. This is awesome. So I guess more of just like they won that helped people get more excited about it. And then two, I guess on how much the impact of Trump is had on this. Like I think generally he's more pro technology. A lot of the people who are kind of the higher ups in Silicon Valley are a lot more pro Trump than they were before. So I think like there's kind of like this like bridge now that wasn't there before that helps. But yeah, I think the cultural shift is like, at least in like El Segundo, is pushed by the people there. But also there's definitely tailwinds of like general cultural change.
Because startup tech, San Francisco, California broadly has been owned by the left for a long time. Why start there
In California?
Yeah,
And I think like it's mostly just because the people who are there, like the majority of the great companies of the last 20, 30 years have been started there, which means like two things. Like one, the culture is very much in that direction because that's like why the companies are there, and the people who lead these companies are in the area, and they're funding these companies. Their kids are working at these companies. Like there's like this kind of general culture that started because of this of Silicon Valley, and then two, because of that, the talent of like these kind of, it's the main thing that is good about El Segundo is like the founding engineer type people is the main thing. So it's like basically you need, so it's like the co-founders, you have your founding engineers like your first person to help build things, and like you can't really find. So I guess the founding engineer has like a pretty bad deal, to be honest, which is like you get low equity, but you do like as much work as a co-founder. So it's like, and people who are like that and who you want to be able to hire like that, there's not many places where you can find people who will like have the drive and have like the knowledge to actually do that. Especially in hardware. Hardware, like LA is, I mean, SpaceX is there.
Yeah.
And like that's why a lot of these companies here, like SpaceX started there. They have the best talent pipelines of hardware engineers of anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
Anduril's nearby. Same thing with them. And then a lot of the talent from these companies are people you want to hire, pretty much. So that's like the main reason. There's not really anywhere else. Like Austin, people like were trying to push for Austin, but like they didn't have the talent issue. Like there was not really any established companies where like people could pull talent from.
Although SpaceX has recently kind of moved out there. So.
Well, they're in Brownsville, which is like near Mexico. So it's like not near Austin, but also the issue is like all the engineers that are good are still in LA, and like if they want to bring them out, they have to like literally fly them out on a private jet, which they do every week. They have a private jet that goes back and forth between LA and Brownsville because the people didn't want to move to Brownsville because like, I mean,
because it's Brownsville.
It's Brownsville, and it's
not LA.
And LA is much nicer than Texas.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah. It does seem kind of like an odd, because California is so full of red tape, and it's like such high taxes and everything.
And all of these companies, like I think Brownsville's technically their headquarters for SpaceX now. Like, there's definitely some tax stuff going on there. A lot of the people are still, again, engineers are still there. Nothing really changed on that side, but it's like, I think tax stuff. A lot of like, and in my opinion, I think like early on when you're starting a company, it makes sense to build it in California just because of the culture and the talent there. But I think as you're looking to scale, and like Anduril, for example, opened up a massive manufacturing facility in Ohio, where they're going to basically just like do a lot of the mass manufacturing, which you don't really need a high skilled talent or like engineering type talent to do that. It's just hire people who can manufacture stuff for you.
Right.
So like that, I think it makes sense to be done in like, I don't know, Ohio,
elsewhere,
Texas, Arizona, whatever. Like this is I think what most people are going to do is like early, I don't know, pre-seed to A, LA, SF, like B and on if you're trying to start scaling manufacturing, having a second headquarters somewhere.